Thanks for tuning into Scalebound Games. We're excited to announce that we're just about a month away from releasing our public playtest. We're so happy that you'll soon be able to have your own adventures in the world of Astra. In the weeks leading up to the playtest, we'd like to highlight how the game works in a bit more detail. By watching June's videos, you can be prepared to make a character, outfit a ship, assemble a crew, and fight your way out of sketchy situations. But hey, before we get started, we are a growing YouTube channel. Every like, comment, and subscribe helps us break free from the algorithm and find more friends to play games with. Anyways, like most modern role-playing games, who your character is will shape how your adventure plays out in High Winds. While it's possible to move through a story just going on your gut human reaction to everything that your GM asks, we find it way more rewarding to really invest in who your character is. If you spend the time to consider where they came from socially and demographically, why they choose to take on an adventure, and how they feel about the people they're working with or against, then it becomes easier for you to act like that character, and more rewarding when you get to dramatically resolve a story arc. Picture it like this. While it's fun to win any combat by the skin of your teeth, no matter who you're playing, it's especially gratifying when that combat was with the man who killed your twin sibling and razed your village, leaving you with nowhere to go but to become an adventurer, bound by your emotions to seek your revenge. And even if you're not the type of player to come up with a 15-page backstory that ties into the rising and falling wars or politics in the world that you're playing in, even just considering what your character's stats say about who they are can add depth and nuance to the way that you play them. You don't need to know how they feel about Tondux to know that if they have no points in their deceit stat, but they need to lie to a local bureaucrat to get out of a sticky situation, they're going to be nervous or maybe even seek alternate solutions. Considering not just what's written on your character sheet, but why it's there, and how that would make your character feel will lead to a bigger sense of escapism, and add more depth to the emergent storytelling at the table, which ultimately means more fun for everyone involved. We always encourage a good session zero with your GM and players to ensure that you know what kind of story the adventure will be, and what factions will be involved in it. While it's awesome to come up with a badass bruiser who works for the Armada, and shoots first and asks questions later, that might not fit for a bank heist campaign in the Broken Isles, far away from the influence of the Gyarados Empire's grasp. If you're not sure what a Session Zero even is, fear not. The week of the playtest release, we'll be dropping a video on how to Session Zero in High Winds, both generally, and for the adventure that we're releasing as part of the playtest packet. The very brief explanation, though, is that you sit down with everyone involved in the game to find out where the story will take place, what kind of characters are expected, if anything homebrew will be added or changed, and what's encouraged or off limits at your table. In High Winds, there are a handful of components that make up who a character is. We'll cover each of them today, what they mean, why they matter, and then we'll make a character together so you can see how they all work together. Everyone thinks of their characters differently. You might be interested in telling the story of an overly sympathetic Gorn, for example, or a defector from the Blood Pirates first and foremost. But the order that we suggest you think about these pieces in is the following. 1 is your high concept. What is the core principle of your adventurer's identity? In High Winds, we call this your high concept. It can be something vague, like tireless scrapper, or specific, like blood pirate recruit second-guessing their initiation rites. This is the structure that you'll hang their motivations off of, the core that drove them to adventure and keeps them pushing over the next horizon. We suggest putting a lot of thought into your high concept, as it does inform most of the decisions that you make down the line. After you know what they're there for, figure out their trouble. This is like their main flaw. Maybe they're greedy, or blinded by a lust for revenge, or unable to walk away from the needy. This doesn't have to be a bad character trait. It can absolutely be something positive, but it needs to complicate their decision-making. Like that last example, unable to walk away from the needy? Maybe the guards are in hot pursuit as you break out of jail. You see a Zoldori withering away from hunger in the corner of a cell, and as you dash past, they call out claiming to be falsely imprisoned and in need of assistance escaping. For most adventurers, this would probably already be morally complex and challenging to think through, but since this touches on your flaw specifically, then it should be something your adventurer advocates strongly for, even if they know it might allow the guards to catch up and foil the escape plan. Troubles are, pardon the pun, complicated. We want you to lean into how and why they make your adventurer unique. But you should remember that this is a collaborative game, and you don't want your character choices getting in the way of everyone having a good time, too. Sure, maybe your character is quick to draw steel, but that's no excuse for you to murder every NPC you come across, for example. After your concepts come your race and your job. These can be picked interchangeably, and they may be informed by some of the choices you made above, along with the type of story your GM is trying to tell. As an example, a typical Tonduk does not get their hands dirty if they don't need to, so it would be unlikely for a gearhead engineer who loves the grease of an engine to pick that race and job. Of course, I'm not your boss, and I won't tell Kieran that you chose to do that either. The magic of role-playing games is that you can do something unexpected like that if you really want to. And some of the most memorable stories in the history of fiction are about people going against expectations to be something that no one thought they could be. But it's okay to play it safe too, especially if you're just learning about a world. Unlike a concept, these are a bit less freeform. Unless your GM is allowing homebrew content, there are a set list of races and jobs to choose from. For race, our game has the following. Gorn are the tall, strong, and foreboding characters that are hard to knock down. They're physically imposing, and often perceived as emotionally detached and aggressive by outsiders. But those who get to know them understand that this is a major misconception. They come from cooler climates, and their tentacle-covered faces look very unusual to other races. Gorn have some cool things, like the potential to regenerate themselves physically. So if you want to be the team's tank, then this might be an option for you. And roleplay-wise, you can lean into their intimidating appearance and be the team's bully, or instead expose your softer side as a gentle giant. Humans in Astra are, like on Earth, quite diverse. They are generally shorter than Gorn and taller than Zuldori, with less tentacles and fur than those two to be sure. But otherwise, they don't have any one defining trait. Just as diverse as their appearances are their attitudes and their motivations. They have the longest history in Astra, and vary more from location to location than our other races. You might pick a human if this is your first time roleplaying, because even I'll admit, it's easier to wrap your head around someone like you than someone that's totally different than you. Because of their storied histories and attitudes though, they offer something for everyone, even advanced roleplayers. They often know someone in every port, so they're a great pick if you like to make connections or have an emergency contact to bail you out. And they're particularly comfortable on ships, so they have a bit more ease getting around them than most of the races. Up next are mechanoids, my beloved. While often used for menial labor, the mechanoids have developed tight-knit societies away from other races, where they delicately tend to each other. They're powered by cores made of moon crystal, and are able to go on tirelessly, making them a valuable asset on any crew. And mechanoids are scrappy, both literally and conceptually. They're able to bolt parts onto themselves for a repair or upgrade in a pinch. And they have the potential to be the fastest race if equipped properly. You might roleplay one if you want to be the useful teammate, who goes out of their way to serve the group's greater good, or to help set out on a quest to find more moon crystals and resupply your settlement's dwindling supply. Tonduk are typically seen as haughty and money-motivated. They're not often observed doing labor, but instead focus on amassing connections and developing their businesses. Physically, they're not terribly impressive, as they don't do much to develop their bodies. They kind of stay weak and unassuming. As such, they often choose to, or even need to, augment their bodies with technology. If you're looking to play a diplomat or a trader, this is the race for you. And the adorable Fuzzy Zuldori are nothing to underestimate. Just because they're short and cute doesn't mean they aren't tough. Fantastic at all intellectual endeavors, you can find Zuldori working towards mastering magic, building better engines, or more deeply understanding the natural world. They often make good casters in a party, as many of them are magically attuned, and they can be notoriously hard to hit. They're a great race to roleplay if you want to be a know-it-all academic in your group. As far as jobs go, think about what your concept would naturally lead your adventurer to. If you're on the run from a criminal you owe money to, then maybe a swashbuckler or a smuggler would be the right fit for you. They're good at getting by on very little, they see large swaths of the world, and they can sneak under the nose of those trying to capture them. Plus, wouldn't it make sense for a smuggler to have ties to, like, an old crime boss or something like that? On the flip side, if you were out to start a legitimate business with the Empire, it would make a lot less sense for you to pick a job like that. Instead, you might be a trader, working your way into the government's good favor, or a mage, helping them study and refine the magics they use to protect their ships. Heck, you could even just start off as a soldier in their army. Of course, if your adventure is driven by a love of exploration, then maybe being an engineer would open their doors to the most options. They can find work on any ship going any direction, as long as they're worth the gold they're asking. No one is going to set out without someone to tend to the engine and repair the sails, after all. And as you level up, the job you select will open the door to new job progression talents. These are special abilities, and no other job has access to them. They make your character even better at the job that they selected, and they can really differentiate them from other jobs in more than just like a concept alone. Finally, you get to assign scores to your starting skills. The job you select determines what skills you can specialize in at character creation, but there are ways to expand this pool later. Here's a quick rundown of our skills. You have agility, which is moving with finesse and control. Burglary, which is thievery and opening locked things. Cannons help you fire really big guns and explosives. Crafts help you make things and fix things. Creatures help you befriend and bond with the animals of Astra. Deceit is useful when you're telling dirty lies to others. Diplomacy is more above-the-board negotiation with other people. Exploration is used to find the unfindable. Helmsman can help you command a ship or large vehicle. Lore will let you use your vast knowledge of study. Magic is for casting and understanding spells. Notice is for seeing and perceiving your world. Physique is how strong you are. Sailing is the ability to perform tasks on a ship. Shipwright is like building and fixing ships. Stealth is sneaking around and being unseen. Swords are using swords in combat. That's pretty straightforward. Trade is making deals and discussing the markets. And will is your mental ability and resistance. So from those, when you create a character, you select your job and you get a pool that you can assign different skills to. You get to pick one great skill, 2 good skills, 2 fair skills, and 3 average skills. Everything else is untrained, which is fine. For the most part, you can still attempt tasks even if you're not trained in them. It's just that the chances of success are slim. Finally, any skill that you have a good or better in gets a skill talent. Just like job progression talents, these make your adventurer even better at something they're already pretty good at, and they open up the ability for a lot of expression in how your adventurer tackles their tasks. For example, even though you and another adventurer might both be good at deceit, one of you may have taken the outfit change talent, which lets you swap into a disguise in just a few seconds, while the other may have taken knack for insignia, which grants a +2 to rolls to forge signatures that you've seen in the past. Oh yeah, you should also probably think up a name too. Or at least like a nickname, or something that everyone can call you. Unless you just want to be you for the rest of the adventure. Now it's time. Like I promised, let's make a character together. I think it'd be really interesting to be a former Armada captain that defected when he was ordered to crush a small rebel outpost that hadn't yet grown into be a threat to the Empire. To make it extra spicy, maybe it was near his hometown. My high concept is going to be sympathetic Armada defector, and my flaw will be that I can't let go of the past. Now, race and job. I think a Gorn soldier makes the most sense. Gorn take to the military easily, and most captains start as soldiers, so that is a really close fit for job. Now I do get a racial talent as well. I'm going to take the regeneration one that I kind of hinted at earlier. It lets me recover 1 physical resistance per round, and we'll talk about that in a bit, but basically just makes me harder to knock down. I'm going to note that down on my sheet here. My specialized skills, so I fill in the box next to these ones, are cannons, diplomacy, guns, helmsman, lore, notice, physique, sailing, swords, and will. Alright, now I have to decide like my motivations in history and how that shapes what they're good at. First and foremost, I really do picture this fella as more of like a diplomatic captain than a fighting one, so I think his great skill is going to be diplomacy. I'm going to put a 4 next to that one. I do think he's a strong and formidable sailor, too. So helmsman and physique will be my good skills. Those will get 3s here and here. He's competent with the sword and has a decent eye for paying attention to things. So my fair skills will go to swords and notice. Those are +2. I'll say that he is for sure not superb with cannons or guns, but can fill in on them in a pinch, and he can do like smaller ship tasks if need be, even though he's more comfortable behind the wheel of a large ship. So that makes our fair skills cannons, guns, and sailing. I'll put a 1 here, here, and here. But hold on. You'll notice that even though I'm specialized in lore and will, so those boxes are filled out next to them, I didn't put any points into them. That's because you're always specialized in more skills than you have points to assign. So you have to really think. There's going to be trade-offs and decisions that you make during character creation. Don't rush through it. Make sure that you're spending your resources where you want to. And finally, since I am good or better at diplomacy, helmsman, and physique, I'll pick some talents that fit those traits. Let's say noble touch for diplomacy. That gives me a +1 to all of my rolls when interacting with the nobility of Astra. For helmsman, low fly zone. This one's fun. It lets you plunge into the clouds, making it harder for enemies to hit you during ship combat. Of course, it is harder for you to shoot back up at them too, but sometimes it really is just about living to survive another day. Finally, I need a talent for physique. I cannot emphasize just how ripped our adventurer is, so I'll take Brawler. Since I'm not phenomenal at combat anyway, this is a good one. It lets me add 1 to my rolls regarding unarmed combat. Alright, so now let's talk about how hard we are to hit and how hard we are to knock down. As a soldier, my physical defense stat is based on my physique. That means it's a 3. This determines how hard I am to hit. When an enemy tries to hit me, they'll have to score a 3 or higher on their roll to hit. If you want more details on how rolls are made, we did a video of that a few weeks back called What Makes This RPG Your Next Big Pirate Adventure. Our mental defense is based on our will, which is, unfortunately 0. Please don't mock us, we're very sensitive. Finally, we get our resistances. These are kind of like hit points or stress in other popular role-playing games. These have to be depleted before we start taking serious damage, or consequences. No matter what race or job you pick, they always start at least 2 plus your physique for physical, and 2 plus your will for mental. Once these are depleted, you will start taking those consequences, so mind them carefully. Finally, your starting equipment and wealth is based on what makes the most sense for your story and should always be discussed with your GM first. But typically, you'll have a piece of armor and a weapon, but you may start off even less equipped than that, or on a well-established ship with good gear, like higher tier weapons or better armor. Just talk with your GM about that. There are a few boxes left that we haven't covered yet, but this video is getting long. We'll save deep dives on those for later videos, but since you've already seen them, I'll run you through a fast overview. Up here, we have Luck and Refresh. Luck is kind of like inspiration or hope in other games. It lets you reroll dice, change story beats, empower your abilities, and help allies. Refresh is how many points your luck is brought back up to at the start of every session if you have less than that number. Your level is also tracked up here. You know, the more you advance, the higher that gets. The higher that gets, the better stuff you get to do. Not revolutionary. Pretty normal stuff here. Finally, down here you have contacts, who are people you've interacted with in the adventure that are important to your character. You may have a good relationship with them, in which case you'll put a plus next to their name, or it might be sour, and they get a minus. And over here, below your wealth, is your hoard. This is basically your inventory. Anything you have on you that doesn't go in equipment gets stored here. And I think that's it. Let's quickly recap. Your adventurer is made up of concepts. These are what motivate them for better or worse. They have a race and a job that will tell a bit about their place in the world of Astra, and skills that determine how good or bad they are at trying to do what they want to do. Finally, their talents will give them even bigger boons to accomplishing things they're really good at. The playtest packet we're releasing soon will have mechanical details for a lot of what we've covered today, but in the meantime, here's a quick 3-point system for coming up for ideas for characters. What motivates them? What are they good at and bad at? And what should we call them? That's really all you need to get started. Anyways, check back in over the next few weeks as we walk you through the rest of what to expect when you get the chance to play Highwinds for the first time this July. And as always, please follow our Kickstarter if you haven't already. It's down in the link below.